drop-off in their GDP because people just weren't working because they were alone. They put this person in charge to get people out of their houses and working because there was an economic cost to what they were facing. But being alone and not belonging, not being a part of a community has so many adverse health effects. It's more severe, it's more adverse to your health than obesity and smoking. Being alone is tragic. Feeling like you're not valued is tragic. And yet, we want to be alone. So what do we do as a church? What happens to us? And what this article presupposes, and I found very interesting, not being a part of a church because the church asked too little of them. They made it easy to opt out. Yeah, be a part of a community group, I guess, if you have time. Yeah, you're serving the kids ministry if you want to. You know, it's kind of crazy down there, but I guess if you want to do that, yeah. They made it too easy. They lowered the bar too low. And what we're learning in education with students is that students will rise to your expectations. You set the bar high, they want to meet that bar. But yet as adults, we're trying to make everything so approachable and so easy to be a part of, but we've lowered it so far down that instead what we're seeing is people are opting out. They're just like, well, if push comes to shove and, I got something else to do on a Sunday, I'm going to do that. And that's the hard part. What do we do and how do we exist within that? So let's go to Matthew chapter 16, verse 24. I have to kind of temper, I've got to dial myself down. I'm going to get fired up and I got to calm down. I was going to say some weird stuff. So if I get too far, just, try to be do the Ross thing. Just be like, hey, can you just, easy, okay? 24. Then Jesus told his disciples, I have it up on the screen here. Matthew 16. Possibly not. There we go. Then Jesus said to his disciples, I want you guys to say this with me, okay? We're going to do this whole quote here. Then Jesus said to his disciples, starting with whoever, say it with me, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. Next. Keep going. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will find it. What good will it be for someone to gain the whole world, yet forfeit their soul? Go ahead and stop there. Or what can anyone give in exchange for their own soul? For the Son of Man is going to come in his Father's glory with his angels, and they will reward each person according to what they have done. I almost thought about leaving that part out. I was like, do I want to say that? Yeah, I do. Because listen, following Jesus is not easy. And it's not this invitation to some flowery deal of hey, listen, just come and be loved. No, there's a responsibility on people who know Jesus to live and act like Jesus in your community, with your community. The moral calling is high. The bar is not set low, it's set extremely high. So when it comes to being a part of the church, the idea of carrying your cross, the idea of taking that up is so significant. Rolheiser says this, walking in the footsteps of Jesus as he carries his cross means that we must accept some other deaths before our physical death. That we are invited to let some parts of ourselves die. When Jesus invites us to die in order to find life, he is not, first of all, talking about physical death. If we live in adulthood, there are a myriad of other deaths that we must undergo before we die physically. Maturity and Christian discipleship are about perennially, every year, naming our deaths, claiming our births, mourning our losses, letting go of what's died, and receiving a new spirit for new life that we are now living. These are the stages of life, death, resurrection, and glorification, and the stages of growing up. They are daily deaths. What marks a community that has more value and meaning is that they die to themselves. They give up the things that everybody else around them says are really important. Financial success, independence, autonomy, individual freedom even to an extent. So what do we do as a church? They die to that because there's a greater call and a greater mission. The bar is set extremely high. Jesus doesn't mess around, and yet this is the initial invitation to his disciples. Can you imagine that? They're facing trials that we probably will never face, and this is the initial invitation. Listen, if you want to come after me, if you want to follow me, you're going to have to die. If you put that on a brochure, like, hey, you got come to church, you're going to have to die, though. This is weird. This is getting strange. But Jesus is saying it's not about physical death. Before that even happens, you got to die to a lot of stuff. What we're learning in education with students is that recently I started watching this show on Netflix called How to Be a Cult Leader. Now, before you think I have an ulterior motive, I don't. I just am really fascinated by cults, okay? Which I guess is also weird. This is the sequel to How to Become a Dictator. No, I got the same series, different one, okay? It's very similar, actually, not too different. That's the hard part. And so, what do we do and how do we exist within that? So, how your guys' perspective of me has totally changed at this point. 24. I watch other shows on Netflix too, which I'm not going to talk about. Here's the deal. The idea is that I have to kind of like all these temper. I've got to dial myself down. I'm going to get fired up. And I initially say some weird stuff. From a really if I get too far, just try to be like want to change the Ross thing. Just be like, hey, just do something good. They want to call people to a higher calling. 24. To a divine calling. Then Jesus told his disciples, starts as some sort of pseudo-Christian reality here. God has called me to do this. I am God's messenger Matthew 16. To do X, Y, and Z. And people go, possibly, okay. Possibly not. There we go. And they sign up for it. And they get really far down the line, and it twists and turns and takes us different stages, and the cult leader actually doesn't have Jesus said to his disciples, starting with whoever, say with me, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. So much that they're willing to compromise their logic to be a part of it. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it. And also how easy that's manipulated by people. But whoever loses their life for me will find it. What good will it be for someone to gain the whole world and yet forfeit their soul? Go ahead and stop. What's fascinating about it is that people aren't pushed away from a place of high calling. Instead, they desire it. The Son of Man is going to come in his Father's glory. And so it's amazing to see that as a church, as a community, globally in the U.S., we've lowered the bar according to what they have done. And people want to be about leaving that part out. I was like, they want to participate. They want to say that. Now, cults have a whole different thing. They're usually told their motivation is totally flawed. Following Jesus to get caught up is not easy. Because people want that. And it's not this invitation to like some flowery deal of like, hey, listen, just come and be loved. No, there's a responsibility on people who know Jesus to live and act like Jesus. To live in your community, with your community. Purpose. The moral calling is high. We need to die. The bar's not set low, it's set extremely high as our identity. So when it comes to being a part of the church, the idea of carrying your cross, the idea of taking that up, we need to die to so significant. Rolheiser says this, walking in the footsteps of Jesus as he carries his cross means that we must accept some other deaths before our physical death. That we are invited to let some parts of ourselves die. When Jesus invites us to die in order to find life, he is not, first of all, talking about physical death. If we live in adulthood, there are a myriad of other deaths that we must undergo before we shallow Christianity that sets the bar incredibly low. Maturity and Christian discipleship are about perennially, every year, naming our deaths, claiming our births, mourning our losses, letting go of what's died, and receiving new spirit for new life that we are